times. Well, good evening, everyone. Look, I got it right. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone this evening? Happy St. Patrick's Day. I don't own any green, sorry, but I'll just say Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you who have your green on. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a close green. 5, we'll say. Excellent. Is anybody Irish in here?
My first name, and that's it.
Oh, that's right.
I have some.
I have some Irish.
Some in you?
Grandma's.
Oh, that's good. Well, did you celebrate today? Okay. So, I wanted to just welcome everyone. Who's here for the first time at on Monday Night Workshop? Oh, let's give them a hand. Who's here for the last time? Does that ever get old? I want to just run through our schedule real quick. I don't see anybody from our last Omega 1, but we finished Omega 1 last night, which was quite pleasant. I have a next Omega 1 is April 3rd through the 6th. Nicole will be doing that one. And then the next Monday Night Workshop is April 7th through the 12th. April 7th. The Impact Training will be on April 12th. And the next Monday Night Workshop is April 21st. And of course the Omega 2 is April 24th to the 27th. We still have some room in that. If you haven't done an Omega 2, this would be a good time to do it. Mike and I will be doing that Omega 2 for that. So how many people were here from the last the last Monday Night Workshop? I just want to check in. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there's a number of you. Okay, good. So the first thing I want to say, so those of you who weren't here last time, you're not going to be lost. Don't worry about it. I am going to do a quick little review, but I also wanted to remind you that I gave you guys a challenge. Does anybody remember the challenge I gave you? Yay! Did you do your challenge?
I did.
Excellent. Did you do yours?
Yes.
And you did too? Okay. So let me just briefly catch everybody up to what we were talking about last time, and then I'd like to have you guys check in and see how you did on your challenge. I did not do it because I forgot, honestly. Forgot about it because remember the last time I forgot to bring the notes in and the PDF, and I was so harried. So when I got home, all I did, I got the PDF going, and that was it. Once I sent the PDF into the office, I was done. And I forgot that we had a challenge until I finished up, and I got down here and I went, wait, I gave them a challenge. What was that challenge? So I just watched it we posted it on YouTube today. I've got to link it all up. But anyway, we talked last time about the distinction of the internal versus the external realms. Our external realm is everything associated with our 5 senses. So what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we touch, and what we taste. All of that is the external realm. And in the internal realm, we connect it to our higher centers, or our higher self, on the inside of us. That's where we have compassion and love and patience and caring and all the high vibration attributes that we strive for. We discussed the idea that there's a contradiction between my inner and my outer. In the inner realm, I desire to be for lack of a better word, a good person. I desire to make beauty in the world, or just spread joy in the world. I desire to make a contribution to others. Hello, Louis. So in the inner realm, my higher centers, I desire to do the work. That's what we called it. We called it the work. In the external realm, I destroy and devastate myself and others. I judge, I compare, I'm critical, I have malice. Anytime I implement any of those, not only am I creating harm to another individual, but I'm also creating harm to myself. So I used the illustration, or I talked a little bit about, like if I had a balloon, and I mentioned if I had a balloon, you stuck a pin in it, because that's really what it would be. For every time I send a judgment out, a judgment would be coming back into me. So my job was to focus on how I'm interacting in the realm, and am I focusing on the higher centers or the lower centers? Do I find myself reactive, or am I in the mode of acting compassionately with patience, love, caring, and whatnot? That's pretty much what we talked about in a nutshell last Monday night when we met here. Today, I wanted to continue on. As I said, I was taking these off of George's notes. And in his notes, he had a whole pile of information. And so in the internal realm, today he wanted to talk a little bit about, or I wanted to talk a little bit about, on whether or not we're a candidate for the work. We spoke about last time how so many people know the words, oh, discipline, and I know compassion and patience, but we don't act in it. And it's almost a contradiction. To know that and to not do it is harmful. To know what to do and not doing it is very harmful. It's better not to know. So that's the caution of doing the work, is knowing what I'm supposed to be doing and not doing it. And convincing myself that it's okay. I actually say, oh no, that's all right, at least I tried, and I give myself a little heave-ho, even though I'm not doing the work. So, when we left last time, I asked everyone if they could just challenge themselves to see where their focus was. Was your focus on your lower centers or the higher centers, the external realm or the internal realm? And today I'm going to combine that all together and put it into a nice little package. I also asked to see if you could be conscious of your actions for the next the last 2 weeks that we were in. So let me have you guys check in. How did you go, Sharon?
I discovered that the majority of my internal chatter is harsh judgments on other people.
Harsh judgments of other people.
Yes.
Okay, so if we know that, because you know your ex-husband comes to mind right now, and thinking of all the anger and upset you have over him, imagine what that's doing to you. Did you consider that?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then when things happened, like when people came back at me with angry things, I wondered if that wasn't a result of the constant.
Like karma, it's just going to come right back at you.
Yeah.
Right. That's
But
a
even
good
if it isn't, I don't want to send that out there, because I know what it's like to have people constantly judging and correcting you, and I don't want to do that to other people, even people that I don't even know,
Mm-hmm.
because
Would you say that once you became aware you were doing it, did you stop or did it keep going?
it definitely lessened,
Uh-huh.
and I try to bring my thoughts more to just not judging at all. And because I realized, you know, even saying I like this color of green more than that color of green, well,
Can be a judgment.
what about all those other shades of green?
Right.
And it just, I try to not just kind of stay neutral.
So let me ask you this now. What about your boys? Are they fairly judgmental, as children are?
Yes.
And did you catch them and say anything to them, or did they just continue on and didn't notice mommy wasn't being her?
Yeah. No, I just didn't I just let them be the way they are.
Okay.
Try not to judge that.
Did you see if your space felt a little comfortabler, a little bit more peaceful with that conscious awareness of trying not to judge?
Definitely.
Excellent. All right. And now come over here. How would you go?
And my experience was pretty darn similar, only I would say judging each time I would have one of those thoughts. And the first week, I really had a lot of that word come out every time I would be thinking something. And the second week was a lot less, and I think by the weekend, actually, I had a great weekend, and I was in a space where I could be judgmental, but I just felt really a lot of love
Excellent.
for the people who were there, and it was really, really nice. Yeah.
Did you, again, feel more peaceful then, too?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Wonderful. Yes, ma'am.
And I did not do that specific exercise, but from the omega-4 discussion that we have, I've been being conscious of releasing the anger,
Mhm.
being aware of that, and I'm finding, especially today, I clear and I am aware when the thoughts start coming, and the ruts, that's very helpful to me, to think of the ruts, that this does not serve me, and release it right then and there. I'm able to step back into more of a watcher being, as opposed to just being at the mercy of what's going through my head or the anger in there, and just step back and say, this does not serve me, and let it go, and that's been very helpful.
Excellent. And you feel more peaceful, too?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. You look a little bit more peaceful as well. That's good. All right. So, Tamara mentioned the rut. Tabitha, Tamara.
Teresa.
T. I'm just gonna call the lady T. So, what we talked about with a rut was the idea that the more repetition that we put into doing something, it's gonna dig deeper and deeper, and it'll be hard to change. So imagine, if you will, having dirt in front of you and you're shoveling, and every time you judge, it's like taking another load of dirt out and you digging deeper and deeper and deeper. Before you know it, you're in this big trough, ditch. You're in a ditch. And it's harder to get out. So what you have to do is replace it with positive, non-judgment, then positive. So it would be like replacing the dirt, but you're in there. And it takes a long time. So considering how long we've been judging in our lives, that's how long it's going to take to climb out. Or it might seem arduous because you're conscious of it. Like you're consciously aware of now trying not to judge. It's one of the most difficult things that we have is the judgment, because it happens so quickly. We're a society that is set so quick to judging that we just do it without even thought. It just is nature. It's just our nature. Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, that's stupid. We were taking the kids, dropping the kids off to their moms, and my stepdaughter was sitting in the back seat. She was waiting for Mark to get into the car. She was like, God, this is so stupid. And that was her impatience because we're waiting. But it's so negative, and that's usually what happens when we just got her back from her mom, and then we were just going to drop her off. When she comes from a negative environment, it's often, we have to deal with her time to transition to nice calm before she turns into a nice calm person. I don't want to pick on her, but it's so easy to pick on her. She can be such a grush sometimes. She's 13. It's in their nature. I'm just going to say that. So when I was thinking about that too, on how our children see us judging, and then they just think that's the natural thing to do, so it passes on. So they judge because we judge. And it just goes down the line. It just continues down from generation to generation. So we talked about the internal world. That's what we're talking about. And this evening, George said, or he wrote, how can you tell whether or not you're a candidate for the work? Because not everybody is cut out to do the work. Not everybody has the stamina or the discipline or the willpower to consciously continue working on it, or the disdain, because sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you just want to throw your hands up in the air and say, forget it, just forget it. I'm never going to get it. So it takes practice. One of our disciplines that George asked us to memorize many years ago, was the True Servers. It was written by Alice Bailey. And one of them said, beware, or a true server is conscious of the toil, and the long hours and the toil and effort it takes to be a worker. Because it does take a long time to continuously working and working. And I didn't repeat that verbatim. That was just my guess at what it was. It's been a long time since I've read that again. So the idea is, how do I know if I'm ready to do the work? Well, I would say most of you are, since you came here. You have a desire to do something different, or at least you're curious to do something different. So once we're curious of it, then what we have to do is begin to realize when we're acting versus reacting. When we're having that reaction or arrest records that we like to call an omega-1, or is this just a conscious, okay, this is how I'm going to show up today. I'm going to choose this way of being. He says that you cannot allow yourself to think with impurities without remembering the consequences of both, yourself and others. If you're somebody who's a candidate for the work, you will be conscious of how far away from your higher centers you are. So we'll realize, oh, wow, I got a long way to go. That's the first step. Holy mackerel, I've got a long way to go. So he said, for example, if you are unable to shed your envy, malice, hatred, anger, bitterness, and judgment, you will be unable to manifest unconditional love, acceptance, all that emanate from our higher self. So if you desire unconditional love, which I'll remind you in Omega-1 we talk about unconditional love with our definition of loving the unlovable, giving to the undeserving, and forgiving the unforgivable. That's a tall order. But it really means love just because you can. No strings attached, nothing's required, just because you can. And we have several activities in the training that emphasizes that. So, if that's the things that you desire to do, you will never be able to taste it, or even look for it, I guess, as long as you have the filters of envy, judgment, criticism, disdain, anything that's associated with a reaction, anything that's connected to your rest records, will prevent us from elevating ourselves, elevating our consciousness. This is why the work begins with self-observation. Self-observation. We've talked about this before, or I've talked about this before. Self-observation is the idea that you observe yourself. Now, it doesn't mean you say, oh, now I'm holding my phone, now I put my phone down, now I'm standing here, now I'm going to lean on one leg. That's the beginning steps of it, but that's external observation. If you want to do this work, you have to do self-observation in the internal realm. Self-observation meaning, okay, so I'm sitting here right now, how am I feeling? Does this sound like something I want to do or something I don't want to do? Is this going to be hard? Do I really want to do this? So self-observation. Do you have that reaction to anything? When we have reactions to things in our self-observation, the observation is to watch the reaction. So here's the key. We observe ourselves reacting, but we can't judge that we're reacting. Oh, look, you're reacting again. Then you're not self-observing anymore, you're judging. You're back into judging. So self-observation is as if you could pull yourself away and watch something unfold and have no reaction to it. Have no, ooh, that's stupid, or oh, that's dumb. All you do is just observe. Just simply look and observe. So it would be like in the Fourth Way Teachings, George Gurdjieff is one of the gentlemen that taught the Fourth Way Teachings. He said when it comes to observation, the best thing to do is think about a school bus. A school bus would be, if you look at a school bus and there's all these kids on the school bus, and there's a school driver. Hopefully there's a driver on the bus. So if you can imagine that all the kids, change the kids into different personalities of you. Like one would be reactive, one would be patient, one would be demanding, one would be critical, one would be love. So you have all the different personalities in that bus. And with self-observation, your job is to see who's driving the bus that day or in that moment. In other words, who's running the show. That's what he said. And by giving us the illustration of a bus, therefore, you don't have to perceive it as watching yourself. It gives you something else to do. It gives you the ability to pull yourself away. So as you're watching this and you feel yourself going, okay, am I feeling tired right now? Am I disinterested? That would be an observation. But again, as I said, it wouldn't be, oh God, I can't believe I'm feeling this. I should be more. Those are criticisms and judgments, and you're not observing, you're reacting. So self-observation takes a bit of practice. It takes some time to learn to be able to detach from what you're observing. I have this, I'm going to use the computer. This is funny. We've had the ability to do PowerPoint presentation. I don't know how to do PowerPoint presentations, but there's been several times that I wish I did, because instead of all the handouts up there, it would be so easy to just put it up on the screen. Well, Mark figured it out. Oh, look, there's a cable and it just plugs right into a computer. It's been there all along. That's nice. So I'm going to do my attempt to do a PowerPoint presentation. But what I wanted to do was show us how we have reactions to certain events. If you're unable to see, he says that the work, this is the thing he mentions, the work is about developing an inner relationship to outer events, meaning how do you handle outer events? So something unfolds, you sit and say, okay, how is this affecting me? Something else unfolds, okay, how does this affect me? Another thing unfolds, well, how do I feel about that? For example, we could say current events. I'm going to mess the name up. Is it Croatia? Croatia and Russia. I don't even know what's going on over there, but you know, so there's turmoil over there. So how do you feel about that? You would sit and say, all right, how am I feeling about that? The missing plane of Malaysia. How do we feel about that? Anything else that's current that I'm missing? I didn't see the news today, so is there anything? The airplane, that's the Malaysia plane? Yeah. Did anybody see the news today? Is there any current
Snow.
Snow?
The snow back east that doesn't stop.
Small earthquake in LA.
The earthquake in California. Okay, so let me just show you what just happened. So she mentioned the snow, and my first thing was, haha, we don't have snow. That's a reaction. So I would sit there and say, even though I'm enjoying it, that they're all freezing and that's a reaction. So I would sit and say, okay, why did I react that way? It's snow. I could also choose compassion. Those poor people are freezing. I'm sorry. I want to feel compassion for them, I really do. Earthquake in California. So earthquake in California, we could say, all right, how does that affect me? Do we worry about the people in California? Was it a bad one? Did anyone get injured? So those are the things that we do. We just do self-observation. But it happens very quickly. As I said, you saw how fast I made that thing about, they're in snow. It can happen that quickly. My job is to observe it. Ultimately, what I'm looking to do is to not let outside events affect me at all. That's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal. Is this easy to do? Absolutely not. There are monks who meditate hours, days, years, and they still have reactions. So that gives me hope. At least I know all the ones who are really committed to it, and they're still not handling it. There's some place we're able to do that. When I think about the reactions that we have, it also talks about how mechanical we can be. We end up having reactions and we're not even aware we're doing it. We just react. It's kind of like the driving scenario. I asked this in Omega once, so I'll ask it now. All right, how many people have ever driven to a location and when you arrive, you don't know how you got there because you've been thinking of something else? Yeah, you people scare me. You're supposed to pay attention on the road. But we don't, right? Because my mind's off thinking of something else, or I'm jamming out to a tune. My body mechanically does the left, the right. I actually can get on a freeway and get off of it and not even know that I was on the freeway. That's scary. And sometimes that's where accidents happen because people aren't paying attention. So here I have it. I'm mechanical. I'm operating mechanically all the time. My job is to say, okay, what am I doing? How am I present? What's happening at this moment? How is this affecting me at this moment? So he says, this means that you experience things from life for how you feel about them rather than what you analyze in them. So I'm saying analyzing because the mind is going to go to the judgment. The heart says the feel. How do I feel about this as I'm observing this? My mind can't observe. My mind is always going to want to categorize. I have to go to the heart, the soul, your essence, whatever you wish to call it. So have you ever played that game where somebody says a word and then you instantly say the word back to them?
Yes.
Anybody done that? Okay, well, we're going to do it now. Let's see if I can get this to work. The right button turns that on, right?
Yes.
Hold, please. I'm going to flash the words up on the screen, and I want you to say out loud the first word that comes to you. Is it on, Mark?
Do you see the light coming through the lens?
No.
Hold it for a minute.
There it is. Well, I saw something. And then can you turn the stage lights off for me, please? Thank you, just so it stands up a little bit. There we go. Stands out a little bit more. And then, will it just automatically go on, or do I have to hit?
Should automatically.
There we go. What's the first word that you see? What do you think? Excellent. Next one. So we see top, we go to bottom. In, out. That's the next one. And. Now, isn't that amazing? We automatically went to the opposites. Automatically went to the opposites. Almost everybody. I actually had one of the words I was going to say was high, and I wasn't sure if anybody would say low or goodbye, because you don't know which high it is. But we typically go to the opposites because my brain already understands opposites. Oh, hot, cold. I naturally go to the opposites. We, as a human being, my mind balances things out in the Hermetic principle of, we have the vibration and polarity. So I definitely go to polarity. So as soon as I see one, I go right to the opposite. You didn't even have to think very hard, did you? You saw the word, oh, there it went, and that's what I said. Or that's what you said. All right, so since we have all of these, what I'd like you to do is have a quick conversation with a buddy of yours to talk about if you observed how you felt when you were saying those words. Did you have any observation whatsoever or any reaction? What stopped? I wasn't ready. Mark just came up and said, can you give me a cue? Because I stopped the video. I want to make sure I don't get you starting to talk already. All right. Anybody aware of your reaction when you started to say the words?
No.
Nobody.
Yes.
Nobody. Even though I just talked about it.
Yeah.
Kim?
My husband and I play this game a lot with the word game, you know, and so that's what I thought of. immediately, and thought it was kind of funny.
That it went, did you go to the opposites, or did you think of anything else?
The first word, hot, I came up with tamale. And then after that, I went to the opposites, except for black, I came up with red.
Okay, the red black game.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't notice anything immediately, but as we went into like 2 or 3 words in, I noticed I'm going, curious, why do we automatically go to the opposite? And then you explain.
Yeah, that's excellent. All right, anyone else? So I've got some more for you. We all have, now these are not going to be words, these are going to be pictures. We all have almost an identical reaction to certain situations that we see. So the first picture I'm going to show you, oh, it's this one. The first picture I'm going to show you, oh, see, most of us see that. Now let me tell you the story about him. This is a little puppy whose leash was tied to the end of the car without the driver knowing, and the driver took off. He was dragged for 1.5 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Now you see how you all have the same reactions? Isn't that amazing? So 1.5 miles, every bone was broken. This poor little guy who was bandaged up. This was a picture of them when they first got him into the Humane Society. And they're still searching. It was in Missouri somewhere. So that's our first reaction. Most of us are like, aw. Okay, here's another picture.
Ew.
It's a praying mantis having dinner. Yeah, that's quite gross.
Bumblebee.
Now, you notice how your reactions are all quite similar. Here's another one. Baby seal laying on the ice. Baby seal being beaten
Oh.
on the ice.
Now that makes me angry.
Yeah. So, we get different reactions from this. Then, laughter, right? We have laughter and then tears. So, have a conversation with your buddy now about the reactions that you had to the pictures that you saw. Go ahead. All right, if I can have your attention. So what were your reactions, consciously aware? What were your reactions to the different pictures? Did you have the same as everyone else? Did you feel like you did something different?
Same.
Same as everyone else?
Is it wrong to say that you didn't have any reaction to some of the pictures?
No, it's no wrong at all. Absolutely not. Anybody have a gut reaction to some of the pictures? The bug?
After you talked about the dog being dragged, I found an issue of anger and judgment for the person that it was, I felt very stupid.
Yes. So we have anger and judgment. And then I actually had a little bit of reaction to how can a driver not know that there's a dog connected to your, yeah, so there's judgment there. So yes, judgment comes out on that. What about the seal being beaten, the clubbed? Anger, so that gets us anger there. So that's usually, and a gut, did you feel it in your gut when you saw that?
I want to be him.
And you know,
You wanted to beat him?
getting back to the dog, I probably wasn't as upset about the driver as I was about the individual that tied the dog.
Yes,
to the lumber.
absolutely, yes.
Because it's easy, I mean, if you come into the driver's side from the front of the vehicle, you don't know what's behind you.
Right. And we don't really know the situation.
Right.
So there's all different things, but again, the biggest thing is how could somebody do that to a
Yeah.
dog?
Yeah.
And then a poor little guy. So we have compassion and then anger, so you have upset. So what I was looking for is if you had any gut reaction, because what happened is you let an external event affect your internal world. As horrible that is, it's true. You let an external event affect your internal realm. So last year, Mark and I were up at Lake Tahoe. I don't know if I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it now. We were up at Lake Tahoe, and in the wintertime, it was right around September, October, but they had an early snow. And we were driving, and a conversion, is that what it was called, Mark, or convex, where the clouds are lower than the mountain peaks? It was one of those things, so the valley was just covered with clouds. So as we're driving, I screamed to my friend Mark, who happened to be driving, and I said, Mark, wait, stop, I want to take a picture. So I got out, and then my Mark came out with me, and we ran, and I took pictures. And then when I came around, I thought, well, instead of running up along the hill, because I ran up the hill, I came back down around and was walking on the freeway line, going back to the car. And I noticed, out of the corner of my eye, these claws sticking up. And I thought, is that a hawk? And I stopped, and sure enough, it was a hawk. It was just laying there on the ground. Obviously, it had been hit by something and it was dead. So my first reaction was, ugh, and then I thought, ooh, cool, a feather. But it was, the ground was frozen. It was frozen solid. But my first reaction was death, ew, something dead. And then I switched it to, oh, very cool, I can grab a feather, or maybe I'll take that claw sticking up. I'm not been holding that on my mirror, a little claw, scare the crap out of everybody. So I ran back over, but I realized something prevented me from actually touching her. I couldn't do it. I got really close and then I had to stop because I saw her neck was kind of, you knew her neck snapped. And I saw, and then I had to turn away. And then I had to keep reminding myself, focus on the positive, not the death. Focus on pretty beautiful bird. Look how close I'm standing next to a hawk. Okay, she's dead, but she's beautiful. And it was one event. I flip-flop from happiness to sadness, yucky to, oh, cool, excitement and like gonna puke, all in just one tiny event. And sometimes that's what can happen to us. One event can occur and we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different reactions. How do we know which is the real me? How do I know which is the real me? Am I the reacting, the revolting one, the one that's excited and thrilled? How do I determine which one is really the essence of Anne Marie? So again, I'm going to have you talk to your buddy. I want you to talk about an event that you had upset but also excitement. Kind of like a roller coaster. You know how you're on the roller coaster, you love it but you hate it?
Yeah.
It's one of the, well, some people hate them all the way, but I want you to think of an event that you had upset, turmoil, and see if you can counter how many different reactions you had, and then determine which one you think is the real you. Go ahead. May I have your attention, please? All right, I'd like to hear from some of you. What was your events and your reactions? Oh, wow. Yes.
Well, this last weekend I had a big event planned, and I was getting really cold feet about it. I was freaking out over it actually, and I almost didn't want to go and do it. And it involved driving to Yuma and taking a bunch of stuff, and I had rented a vehicle, I thought. But anyway, Thursday I freaked out so much I called 2 or 3 people freaking out, and they were trying to calm me down, and I still wasn't calm. So on Friday, I said, okay, I have to go through with it no matter what. I said I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it, and people are waiting for me over there, so I'm gonna go do it. And so Friday, I think my reaction actually carried over to this whole thing. I rented a vehicle, a van, to take 6 of us, and a bunch of stuff. And when I got to the car rental place, they said, we don't have a car for you. Your car rental is for next week. So I feel like my reaction caused this whole thing with the car rental, going along with my, I don't want to go, brakes on. So then I had to walk back to my house, which was about 1.5 miles, because a lady from work had dropped me off. And so during that walk, I had plenty of time to think about my reaction the previous night, and that possibly that was causing this effect over here with the car rental, and that because I had rented the car online the night before, and because after I had decided, okay, I'm just going to do it, I just rented it, and that probably some of that, that whole ball of wax that I was feeling got transferred over to the wrong date, and so it affected me the next day, and but in the end I did go and everything turned out really well.
Okay, so panic, we could say it was in there
panic
too.
was
All right.
kind of my reaction.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Someone else with an event in turmoil? Apparently you just want to hear me tell stories.
Hard to remember. I have one where I thought I was gonna be dead in 10 minutes, and I died laughing. I was in the Navy during the Korean War.
Uh-huh.
I was shipped out to Alaska without any Aleutians. That's when we thought Russia was gonna invade the United States, they put the Aleutians. We had no defense, we were nothing but a communication station. They called an alert on us about once a week. just to keep it prepared. We had to go fence anyway. Anyway, they rigged the radio one Saturday night when we was in Grand Rapids. They called a gentleman a fake one again. Said a large Russian invasion fleet just discovered 10 miles southwest of Adak, Alaska. That was us. And the old boatswain then during World War II, he took off running down the ferry screaming, "Password, password, password." And here we were all cheering. This part of my language. And the sailor run behind him, one word, one word, one word. I died laughing because it's so funny that the boatswain just tossed and passed the word, but nobody knew what word he was talking about.
Oh. Pass the word. Huh? Oh, that's good.
I'm still here. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad you didn't die then, Doyle. Thank you. Well, we can think about the different events that we have had in our lives that have been impactful, and we have different reactions to them. The birth of a child can be very painful, but also very beautiful. The first time you apply for a job, even if you get it or not, it's very stressful to have to go out and apply, and you have to talk yourself into it, or somebody gets you the job. I was actually very fortunate. The first job I had, my next door neighbor, he was across the street, well, he ended up being my boyfriend, but my boyfriend was working there. He left and just gave it to me. He's like, "Oh, come with me." I walked in, he's like, "Here, she'll take my job," and he walked out. That's how I got my very first job, which, by the way, was funny. It was in a printing company. I ended up working for George in a printing company, too. That was funny. But when it comes to the events in our lives, the first time we drive a car, terrified but exhilarated. Oh my God, but you're absolutely frozen with fear. So you have that death grip on the steering wheel. If we can look at large events or small events, we still have those reactions to the events. Now, the question was, how do I determine which one is me? Well, it was a trick question. All of them are me. I'm a combination of all of them. Remember the bus? It's everybody's in there. I'm all of them. What is the goal is to be able to choose who's going to be driving the bus rather than just observe who's driving the bus. That would be the higher goal, to be observing. Okay, no, I think I want this person to be driving the bus, because sometimes aggression is necessary to protect yourself or to push yourself through something, and sometimes it's not. So my job would be to not only observe the different types of reactions I'm having, but to choose the type of way that I want to show up. So this is starting to look like it's a very arduous process, isn't it? First I have to observe, and then I've got to choose, I've got to be aware that I'm choosing, and then I've got to not have a reaction to the observation. So it can be a bit daunting if you think about all that we have to do. Torcum introduced, oh, here's another thing. I forgot to mention this. You know how mechanical we are when somebody asks you, "How are you?" What's our first response? Fine. Almost everybody says fine. I don't. I intentionally say something different just because I don't want to go unconscious. So people will ask me, "How are you?" I'm cold, or I'm hot, or I'm really exhausted. I went at the bank the other day and the woman's like, "Oh, hi, Anne-Marie, how are you?" I'm like, "I am so sweaty and stinky." She's like, "Did you just run down here?" Because I was in my sweats. I'm like, "No, I just got done running on the elliptical." But so it changes the conversation, and just instead of just saying fine, but mostly it keeps me conscious. I'm also an advocate of not saying "I love you" just to say "I love you." I won't do it. I'm very cautious about when I say "I love you." Not cautious, but I pay attention. If I'm going to say "I love you," I want to make sure I'm saying "I love you," not "love you." I watch that all the time, and I think that's so shallow, that they're not even aware of the power of the words that they're choosing when those words are just thrown out there. "Love you."
Like it's a habit.
Like it's a habit. We're not even, it goes mechanical. That's what it ends up turning into, being mechanical. So the idea that we say we're fine. So I went to the dictionary and I thought, you know, we say this often all the time. I wonder if anybody really knows what the true definition of fine is. There's a lot of different definitions for the word fine. But the very top one, the first fine, is of high quality. So when you're answering fine, are you saying, "I'm of high quality"? So maybe the next time someone says, "How are you?" "I'm of high quality." That would be funny. If it's a person, it says, "Of a person worthy of or eliciting admiration." "How are you?" "You should admire me." That's,
I am worthy.
And worthy. I'm worthy of your admiration. The next one was good and satisfactory, which is what most of us default to. Used as an expression of one's agreement with or acquiescence to something. I'm fine with that. That's what you would say, I'm fine with that. So I agree with you asking me how I'm doing. I guess that's how it would be. In good health and feeling well, of course, most of us think of it that way. If we say the weather is fine, it means it's bright and clear. So the next time someone says, how are you? I'm bright and clear. That would be good. Of imposing, this is a funny one, of imposing or dignified appearance or size. That's a fun house. Like that's what, so you could say, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm imposing and dignified. Of writing, here's something. It sounds impressive and grand, but ultimately it's insecure. Well, that was just a fine piece of work or something like that. It's like a dig on it. It can also mean denoting or displaying a state of good, though not excellent, preservation of stamps, books, and coins, like for collectors. So, oh, that's just fine. It's not excellent, it's fine, it's acceptable. So it would be considered acceptable. Containing a specific high proportion of pure metal. Like with gold, it's very fine with the gold. And then, of course, somebody's hair is fine. It's considered thin. So I would love to say I'm fine because I'm thin. How are you? I'm thin. I don't think you're going to answer somebody that way. But it's intriguing how we default to just a mechanical, how are you, fine? And most of the people don't even realize that you're saying fine. They'll say, how are you, as they're passing, and they don't even stop to hear the answer. I've done that before. I don't answer. I'll just stand there, and they just keep walking. And I'm like, oh, they don't even know that I didn't even answer them. Or sometimes I'll say something funny to see if they'll recognize it, like your fly is open, and they'll just keep walking. They don't even hear that I'll say that. So just to see if they're paying attention, because most people aren't. It's the casual, how are you? And then we walk away. It's part of me thinks, why are you even addressing me if you're not going to have a conversation? I'd rather just smile and nod and continue on. I don't want to use the words unconsciously. So that's some of the things that I've done for fun when I'm trying to practice being conscious. Because really what it boils down to is being aware of my reactions to the external event. Somebody's asking me, how am I? Well, how do I answer that? Instead of just a fine. And most of the time when we say fine, we're not fine. Most of the time there's something else going on. And we're bothered that we have to answer a question or something. So I would say maybe 50% of the time when somebody says, how are you? And you say fine, you're not fine. You're just saying fine, but you're really not. So that goes to the fact that we're lying. Now we're actually engaged in a lying behavior as opposed to being honest. Yes, Lewis.
I've noticed in the last year or so, I always say, when someone was like, how are you doing? You know, and I says, well, I usually say I can't complain, but it wouldn't do me any good.
That's good.
It's always fair to
I gotta analyze that to find out what I'm thinking.
Did I hear someone say fair to Midland? Sometimes people say that.
I'll say
Fair to
that's
Midland.
Saying an overcast to Amarillo.
What did you say?
And I'll finish that sentence by saying an overcast to Amarillo.
Overcast to Amarillo for the weather. That's good.
Very Midland.
So back to what Torka mentioned about the virtues. As you know, we talk about the virtues in here. Words that we use that are high vibrations. If we could start to implement words in our thinking and in our vocabulary, it would help elevate. It was his belief that it would help elevate our consciousness by choosing high vibration words. One of the words he had was stability, which he took common words but gave a spiritual meaning to them. So the stability part, in short, the definition is the ability to sustain a level of consciousness until it becomes normal. So I remember one of the greatest risks I took was when I met the bald eagle. So I went, stood in front of a bald eagle, she kissed me on the nose, most beautiful 10 minutes of my life. Standing there, looking into her eyes. I mean, how many people get to stand and look at a bald eagle that close? I mean, that was just, and she kissed me. How many people get kissed by a bald eagle? So when that event ended, Nicole and Susan said I was on cloud 9 for like 2 weeks. Nothing could bother me. You could say whatever you want. Oh, that's okay. I just crashed your car. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Really, I had such a blissful feeling that nothing could bother me. That would be a small picture of what stability is. But eventually, I settled back down to regular life. and the ins and outs and the trials and tribulations, and I wasn't able to hold that picture anymore. Every once in a while, I can recall that moment, and I can recall being there, and I'll feel it, but I can't seem to hold on to it like I did when it first occurred. I think this is why a lot of people like to take risks, because when you take that risk, you get that exhilaration, but we can't hold on to it, so then we have to go to another exhilaration. One of my clients is a risk junkie. I mean, he does the daredevil stuff, like the speed racing things or whatever. He does really daredevil things and it's just the rush. He loves the rush. And he says with every time that he finishes, he's looking for the next bigger excitement. Like, what's the next big thing? We were talking about doing the squirrel suits. Have you ever seen those? Mm-hmm. It's skydiving, but you have a suit that has wings on it. You open your wings and it's called a squirrel suit. So there's fabric between your legs and then between your arms, and you can fly like 180 miles an hour fast. And so there's a YouTube, somebody sent me this picture of this guy. They do this off in Norway, out in Norway. In the wintertime there's a big, huge mountain, and they would ski jump it and then parachute off down with the skis because it's so high. But in the summertime, they just walk over to the edge and just jump off of it and then open up their suits. And there was this guy who had a camera on his helmet, and if you're not a thrill seeker, don't watch this. But he was coming so close to the mountain, his fingertip was this close to the mountain, 180 miles an hour. He's zipping that close. All you see is just mountain flying by him. And he went over some guy who was down on the ground trying to record him. It went that fast. He was gone. You saw a person gone. It was amazing. So he was talking about that. And as I was watching it, I was having the same gut reactions as if I was actually doing it. And I got this idea, wow, I wonder if I could just watch other people take risks and I'll experience how much to do anything. This saved me a couple grand by watching that. But that's sometimes why we like to do risks, because we get that elevated feeling and then we want to hold on to it. And then it doesn't last very long, so then we take it again. When George first started Omega, remember Dick Hutton? Dick Hutton went through the first 21 Omega 1s. He just kept going because he wanted to have the same experience over and over and over. Well, every training was different, but you would have the same experience. And that's not unusual. There are certain individuals who like to go to do the same thing because it gets that feeling, like you walk out and you feel good. Unfortunately, this is where addictions come into play. Mm-hmm. People get that feeling and, oh yeah, that was good, and then before you know it, you need more. And then you need more, and then you need more before it's running your life. So there's a fine line on the desire and fulfilling the desire. How do we know what's enough? What's enough to sustain me to be a certain way? So Torkham says stability is the ability to sustain a situation so it becomes normal to us. And I think about George. Those of you who met George, who knew George, one of the most compassionate individuals I've ever met. Now, he wasn't always compassionate. He would tell stories about when him and Evelyn were first married and he'd be so jealous he put his fist through the wall one time, or he kicked a box so hard thinking it was an empty box and it was a box full of paper, broke a toe. Like, he would tell stories of that. And then through the years of just practicing, working on compassion, he ended up being a very compassionate individual where somebody could be screaming at him in the classroom, it wouldn't even faze him. He would just look at him and smile and say, what can I do for you, or something. He would never be aggressive back to anybody. So I think that's a good illustration of how he continued on with a level of consciousness of compassion until it became normal for him, so that it was prevalent. That's how he normally showed up, or it was a vibration that he experienced. As I mentioned, at times we experience great joy, but the moments go by so quickly. We can experience tolerance and forgiveness, and in another moment, forget it, we're back to bitter and angry and upset. So we could say, I forgive you, but then we'll remind ourselves, oh, no, I don't. And then you go back and forth. Well, I did forgive you, but now there's something else I'm upset about. So we're not able to sustain that forgiveness. We're not able to sustain the tolerance. We might be able to tolerate a behavior in a 2-year-old, but if a 7-year-old does the same thing, we have no tolerance. We forget they're 7, they're still a child, so we have to remind ourselves. When my mom came to visit us for Christmas, remember, this is a bipolar woman, so she gets agitated quite easily, so Mark's 11-year-old son is very hyper. She couldn't handle it. "Arr!" and I could see it simmering, and I'm thinking, I better get him out of here quick before she blows, because they haven't seen that side of her yet. They love Grandma, they think she's wonderful. They haven't seen the monster yet. So I would scooch him out of the way or something, and then I just gently say to my mom, well, you know, Mom, he's 11. He's a boy. Remember boys. Remember Phil when he was young. Take things apart. Blah, blah, blah. Well, I know she's in her 70s, so her nerves they're shot. So she has no patience or compassion. So I could feel her right. I said she has no patience, compassion, didn't I? I'm sorry. She does. It's very short, though. But I could feel it rising inside of her. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not going to react to her reactions. I remember thinking, I'm not going to react. And I want to protect Joseph. So I'm not going to react. I'll just remind her gently, and then I'll just take Joseph and we'll go someplace else. And then when the kids weren't there, they had half the week with us and half the week with their mom. When the kids weren't there, all she did was like, "Rrr, rrr, rrr," on Joseph. And I found myself defending him all the time. I mean, she didn't do this in front of Mark. She would do it in front of me. And I just think, oh my gosh, you know, what happened? You know, here's a compassionate woman, and all of a sudden, oh, just because his energy got up one notch too much for her and she couldn't take it. So then I said, well, you know, Mom, he gets bullied at school. So, and once I said that, oh, he does? Oh, I didn't know that. And then that brought back the compassion to her. No, he doesn't anymore. He used to. He doesn't anymore, but I said it just to calm her down, because I knew that would get her to feel compassion towards him rather than the upset that he's annoying her for, like, and she took it personal. That's another thing I was going to mention. When we take things personal, we get reactive. So if somebody says something and we take it personal, like, what's she talking about? All of a sudden, I'm reactive and I lose control. I was thinking about you guys when you had your break-in over the holiday, right? So when they had a break, can I talk about it? Your break-in? So you were talking to each other. You didn't know I was talking about you, did you? So they had a break-in, and the gentleman didn't get into the house, but he broke the backyard window, right? And the cats got out, so that was their main concern. It wasn't too much that they thought the cats might get out.
Yeah, we were afraid they got out.
They were afraid the cats, so their safety for the cats was their first concern. It really wasn't that anybody broke into the house, but what about the cats? So that's that reaction. You know, if you've ever had a robbery or something stolen from you, you have that, oh, what happened? And kind of panic sits in for a little while until you realize everything's okay. And when they found the cats, they were fine. There was that relief of, oh, they're good, right? They were all good.
Yeah, they
Okay.
were all hiding in one place.
It's when you look under the bed and all these little eyes.
Eyes staring up at you.
Is it safe? Is it okay?
Dustin Hoffman, is it safe? You remember that movie, The Marathon Man? Does everybody remember that?
Is it safe?
That was a scary movie. Made me never want to go to a dentist, I'll tell you.
Especially German ones.
It's a New York movie, you'll just have to see it. No, you don't have to, it's a scary movie. Anyway, well, it's probably scary not today's standards, I bet.
It was a well done stuff.
It was a good thriller back then. Anyway, back to the idea of when the events affect us. I would have a sense of stability. No matter what occurs, I'd have a sense of stability. So I was thinking about car accidents. That's a good shock. Have you ever been in a car accident? Anybody in here in a car accident? Almost everybody I know has been in a car accident. You guys have never been in a car accident? Wow, that's amazing. All right, so most of us, the car accidents that were you in, and I'm not cursing you, you're not going to have a car accident tonight. So most of the car accidents that we're in, it's a shock, isn't it? So the first moment it occurs, we're like, what happened? It's one of those things, first we're like, what just happened? Even though we know, we just are, like, we reset ourselves, what just happened? And then we think, is everyone okay? That's the next question. What just happened? Is everyone okay? And then we look over at whoever else the other individual was. Now in my case, I didn't have compassion for the last person who hit me because she was drunk and tried to drive away. So I had anger and upset because I had kids in the car. And so this was George's grandchildren I had in the car, and she hit me and then tried to drive away. I was very grateful. Then I went from anger to gratitude because the guys in front of me jumped out of their car and stood in front of her so she couldn't drive away. So then she got out of the car and tried to run. She knew she was drunk. Apparently she had some awareness that she was drunk. So I went from, oh, what just happened? Are you guys okay? What are you doing? To, oh, thank you for stopping her. So just in like that short period of time, I had 4 different experiences. And then I went back to the kids, because then they're crying and, you know, "Why? I want mommy." You know, all right, calm down, I'll find people. So in that moment, when we have a car accident, very quick, we jump from boom, 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 boom. So I was thinking, how could I be an observer in something that's so shocking I didn't expect? So how do we practice observing when the unexpected hits us? And that's really the best place to practice it, but we're so thrown off course, it's the furthest thing from my mind just to think about observing. Our first thought is safety. So shock, safety. That's my first thought, would be safety. I saw, I think it was 60 Minutes last Friday, not this Friday, the Friday before last, and they talked about how a stadium that collapsed in, is it Texas? There was a stadium that collapsed. It was an outdoor.
It was a stage,
Stage.
an outdoor
Stage.
stage. The
Was
wind
it-
blew it down.
Was it Texas or Oklahoma?
I think it was Texas.
It was, so this stage came crashing down, killing people, and there was stories about people who recovered, and so they showed pictures of once the tragedy occurred, then strangers are all in there trying to help everyone else out and recover. So I thought there's a good picture of some people's natural reaction when something happens, help. They also show pictures running, other people running. So you have the people who run. Not to say right or wrong, that's just a good picture of their reaction. So when danger happens, some people flee. That's their inner first thing to do, run. Some people say, help, let's go make sure everyone's okay. I can't tell you what makes right or wrong. Maybe the running was the best thing to do to prevent danger, to help everyone else clear the way so that whoever needed injury, people would get in there. The people staying may have been even more injured. So you don't know which is the right or wrong way of being. It's just a good picture to show the different dynamics that happens when there's a tragedy. So in that tragedy, I watched the people helping others, I watched others running away, and then of course you see the stories of the people regaining their lives back and trying to live again. There was the one woman who had almost had her skull bashed in, and they thought she was a goner, and she's back healthy again. She doesn't have full use of her left arm, but still healthy. So what is it about an individual that enables you to go through tragedy and overcome? And some individuals go through tragedy and not overcome. You know, the same tragedy, same injuries, and yet an individual will excel and another one won't. What is it about an individual that makes that happen? I don't know. Arrest records, chemical makeup, karma, whatever word you want to use. There's something different, unique about each individual that enables us to show up differently. So, what I wanted to do is, if I can have, in a moment, I'm going to have you all go to the board. The idea that spiritual life, I'm assuming most of you are looking for a more awareness, more conscious way of living, but I wonder if you have a picture of what that looks like. So I'm going to have you all go to the board and write down words that you would use to describe what you're striving for. What are some of the things that you're looking for, whether it's peace, harmony, love, compassion, anything, tolerance. Whatever the pictures are that you're striving for, that's what I'd like you to put up there. So if everyone come on up here, just grab the magic marker and write down the things that you're looking for in your life. Alrighty. To love the unlovable without feeling guilty, understanding, freedom, God bless you. Love, happiness, peace, kindness, caring, patience, health and happiness, unconditional love, acceptance, presence, loving awareness, freedom of thought, the next level, that's cute. Love, compassion, peace, clarity, peace, unity of mind, clarity, love, peace, calm, relaxation, not reacting, dignity, peace, love, joy, health, self-empowerment, peace, love, and understanding. I wanted to just highlight what I thought might be commonality between most of us. So I have peace and love are the things that I thought would probably be, well, here's love and peace, peace, love, freedom, acceptance, love, well-being, no love there, but love, love, and peace. So I would say, well, and the other ones are derivatives, I would say, of kindness and caring are part of peace as well, I mean love. But it seems like we have common interest and goals. One of the things that's beneficial of being able to write this out is to have some sense of clarity of what direction we'd like to go to. If we don't know where we're striving for, we'll never know if we actually achieve it or not. And also to distinguish about where we are. So putting that up there, I'm assuming most of you have not attained that in a sense of stability, where it's all the time. And I'm assuming that this is what we're striving for to attain all the time. So a question to ask yourself, if you attained the things that you're reaching for, do you think you would get bored? Do you think you'd max out or just kind of just go, or do you think you'd still have a sense of excitement and enjoyment in life? What do you think?
I think you'd be more childlike.
You'd be more childlike?
Yeah, not childish.
Childlike.
Although I can be childish when I'm judging.
Yes, you are. Because she quickly went, not childish. That's good. So you don't think you'd be flatlined? If you achieve this, you don't think it would be a flat line, Lewis?
I think there's a higher calling yet after you attain that level that you're reaching. You can see the next step up, the next higher spiritual level.
So once I achieve this, there might be something greater than that. But right now, this is all I'm able to see. I would agree with you on that. If I look at it from my lower centers, the lower aspects, I look up and this is what I see. And I mean looking up to the higher centers. So when I look from the lower to the higher, this is what defines the higher. But if I were to attain the higher, I believe there would be something above that. So this, I would say, is all I can see right now, which is good. Because, I don't mean to say good, excuse me, that's a judgment. Beneficial, is that a judgment? Helpful. It is. This is. The idea would be I have a point of origin and a point of destination. This is where I am and this is where I'd like to go at this moment. If I could achieve those things that I'm desiring, who knows what's in store for me on the other side. George says that in order to break ourselves free, we have to experience a shock. A shock captures our attention. A shock puts us into the present moment. As I indicated earlier, the car accidents. It throws us into the present moment, and at that moment, I have awareness. Even if it's just for a second, I have an awareness of me. How am I? What's happening? Where am I? It just puts me right there. As I've already indicated, you could drive to work and not know how you got there because we're mechanical. So my goal would be to not be mechanical. So he says the bottom line of this would be that I'd have to learn how to receive outside impressions and react to them differently. So I have to receive an outside impression, and react to it differently than I've been doing for my entire life. So I have to see something and not go, oh, let go, okay, this is how I'll show up. As I've already mentioned, I choose a different driver for the bus. The ultimate objective of the work is to free yourself from yourself. That would be the ultimate objective, to free yourself from yourself. It is yourself that is preventing you from attaining this. It's nobody else, it's you. So I have to free myself from me to allow myself to experience the things that I desire. He says this has little to do with outside discipline. Little to do, freeing myself from myself has little to do with outside discipline. It has everything to do with thinking differently on the inside. Now, this should not be new. We've talked about this. Changing my thinking, quality of my thinking brings me to a quality life. So if I can change my thinking, I'll have a quality of thinking, quality life. That would be my job. The objective is to think differently. It would not be good for you to try to change if there was nothing for you to change into. So that's why this is very beneficial. I could say I want to change, but if I don't know what I want to change into, I might change into I don't know, an axe murderer. I'm just saying, somebody said that this weekend, so it stuck in my head. She's like, how do you know you date someone, all of a sudden they turn out to be an axe murderer? I'm like, did you do that? No, that's good. The work revolves around self-observation and the object of freeing yourself from thinking the way that keeps yourself engaged in the way you are. Then he introduces another concept, a false personality. Now I'm not going to take time to go into that tonight. A false personality. Essentially it means that if I am an artist, this is the illustration he uses, if I'm an artist and I dream about being a businessman, or in reverse, I'm a businessman and I dream about being an artist, that contradiction, some of us, if you're the artist, you act like a businessman because that's what you really want to be, but you're not. So that's a false personality, being something that you really aren't, pretending that that's who you are, and it's not. So the goal would be to differentiate between my false personality and the true essence, who I really am. Now, that's going to be difficult because, remember earlier I said, how do I know which one of the reactions are me? They're all me. So how do I know the businessman and the artist are not me? How do I distinguish between the false personality and the essence, which is truly me? That's a good task in itself. The bottom line, he said, if you've lived your life around your essence and your true personality, your life would probably be quite productive. So that's how you would determine. If your life is productive, if you're excelling at the things that you're excelling at, if you're striving for this and succeeding, then the two are combined and that's who they are. But if you have conflict, if you have constant distress, constant upset, judgment, then you're not. So you're not in harmony. So that would be your answer. If you are in harmony, then your false personality is not a false personality at all. They both are combined. It's a combination. The result, he said, sometimes when we're so invested in the false personality, we do an over-evaluation of ourselves or a devaluation of ourselves. So in other words, there's two things that we do. We either think too much of ourselves or not enough of ourselves. Very rarely do we find that medium. We either think we're the greatest person on the planet, yes we are, or we think that we're the worst person on the planet. And why would anybody want to talk to me? Why would anybody want to be around me? So we have a tendency to go to extremes because that's what human beings do. Good, bad, black, white, we go to the extremes. So we think not enough, too much. Our job is to be able to center that in and make it balanced, more balanced. I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. I'm not the tallest, and I'm not the smallest. There are people shorter than me. That's why I have Susan as a friend. She's shorter than me, so it's balance. So that for you, Susan. So here I have, she's going to watch this on the video, I'm sure. So my job is to find the balance in things, not to go to the extremes. How do I find the balance? It's all about the observation again. This all boils back down to observation, observation, observation. My job is to be able to observe and think differently. Oh, look, that just happened. How am I feeling? Would I like to feel something? So when it comes to the event, even though I know I'm reacting, here's my final thing, even though I know I'm reacting, I still choose to react. So is that incongruent or congruent with me? Knowing what to do and not doing it, so I know I'm not supposed to be reacting and I'm going to react. So it's kind of like one of those things where you end up being the observer and you know, yeah, you're going down in flames, girl, and you just watch it instead of trying to do anything to stop it. So what is it within me that doesn't have the ability to stop it? What's it within me that says, it's okay, we're burning today and I know we're going to go down, I'm doing it. Like I just surrender to the reaction rather than take the opportunity to grow. There's something in all of us that does that. Whether it's we're exhausted, we have too much stress, there's too much arrest records between us, there's too much baggage, it's too difficult, I'm too stressed. You can add any element you want, but there is a time when we do that. So here's the key. When we watch ourselves choose to react, we know we're reacting and we do it anyway, we cannot judge ourselves. We cannot judge ourselves because when we judge it, we make it even worse. So if I see myself going down in flames, I can't say, you moron, what are you doing? I'm judging it. I could say, you're going down in flames, honey, and watch it and not react. But if I judge the reaction, I'm making it twice as worse. So that's the thing I'd like to leave you with. Even though we're talking about the awareness and observation, you're not going to be successful all the time. Most of the time, you're not going to be successful because this is difficult. But remember not to judge yourself. When you see yourself going down, catch it, smile about it, laugh if you want to, just, oh, there it is again, and then continue on. But if you see it going, you can watch going, okay, let's see where this goes tonight, and not judge. That's really the idea. When it comes to judgment, we do so much harm to ourselves, so much harm to ourselves. It's almost irreparable. I think when I think about karma, in some of the readings that I've read about karma, some of the readings that I've had, part of it is the idea that we have to relive and come back and try to overcome our judgments that we've had in the past. And I think that's true. I think our judgments can confine us and repeat the same lessons. Some of you may have had this experience that when you judge other people, those people end up judging you back. It's almost instant karma. Or when you have a judgment of a certain event and before you know it, that event happens to you. So it's almost instant. I don't know if that's true or not. There are no laws that I can see lined up with that. But I do know the detriment that we do when we do the judgment, the internal detriment that we do to ourselves. The last thing I'd like to say is that's one of the things that George worked with me, and that I'm truly grateful for, is the idea of how much judgment occurs and how harmful we are with our judgment. It's an incongruent position to be in front of the room and teach people not to judge while I'm judging. That's incongruent. That actually causes me more harm than good. So that's been my sore point. That's the one thing I work on the most, is the judgment. Now at least I've gotten to the point where I can observe it. Before it gets out of my mouth, I'm aware of it, but it's still there. Like my next part would be to not have it here, to just observe and not have the reaction. That would be like the next step, I would say. So, yes, ma'am.
Is it the same, though, even if it's in your head and it comes out of your mouth, it's kind of the same?
Well, what I would say is, I think it's less because the vibrations of the words carry out into the physical world, but not by much. That's what I would say. Yeah, but good question, thank you. Anyone else? Anything else? Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. We have a handout in the back for you. We'll see you in 2 weeks.